All right, I think we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our series. We are so glad if you're here or those of us joining in. My name is Donna. This is my friend Kim from Abundant Life to Row. And we are back here chatting. We said we'd be back, and we are. We had a bit of a break. The holidays hit us, and now it's February. But anyway, we're back. Here we are.
Yeah.
And we are excited to be here. So, we're going to do a little review of what we talked about last time, and we encourage you to check that out. To find that video, you have to actually go to Kim's channel, which is
Yeah.
Abundant Life to Row, right? And it would
Yes.
be under your lives. I think it's in your lives section.
And what I'll do is I will send over, I'll pull up in a minute, the link to the original episode. And I'll so you can put it in the description box and or I can leave a comment. Or you leave a comment and pin it to the video later so people can check out
Perfect.
the original
Yeah.
part one. So I'll send it. I'll send
Okay,
over the
that'd be
link.
awesome. Yeah, because if you go to my channel, you won't see it. I don't know if I'm able to put it there. I
Yeah.
would love to have it on my channel. We can figure that
Let me
out when
grab
it's
it.
possible. But
I can do
anyway, so we're here together and we're kind of trading off for now. So Kim hosted last time. I'm hosting this time. Little disclaimer: I haven't done a live stream in probably a couple of years, so if it's a little clunky, please forgive me. But Kim will help me. Um, but this is going to be fun. We want to have a whole discussion today about a topic that Natalia brought up on her channel, which is tarot shrink. So shout
yeah.
out to Natalia who inspired this. And her topic was exactly this: like, what do you, when you're feeling shame, guilt, judgment about tarot,
Yes.
what do you do with that? What's that all about? And she had some great, opinions about this. So Kim and I wanted to take a crack
Right.
at this. Now, I didn't do my quick review. I'll do my little quick review. I kind of got ahead of myself there, right? So we just want to remind you that last time in our first video that started out this whole series, which
Mm-hmm.
is, I'm blanking on Artistry of Cartomancy is the name of our
Yay.
series. So that time we just kind of threw out like a whole bunch of topics to see what you guys thought about the topics. So I'm just gonna name the highlights. Um, and that the so top of the list was that the whole purpose of this series is to create CCC. We are trying to create Cartomancy colleague community. Um, so that's our banner that we're waving all the time. It's all about that. So welcome if you're here and you share with us what you're feeling, any ideas you have on the topic, because it's all about that. It's just this is an extension of tarot, what we call tarot tea, which is the YouTube community that attracts tarot and oracle card lovers. So we talked about that. And then we were all about kind of encouraging anybody who, if you feel like you're kind of a wannabe reader, like you don't feel like you're a legit reader, we are encouraging you all to like embrace it. And if you are thinking about going professional with your readings, like just, come on in, the water's fine. So that was another big topic.
Yes.
And then we talked about energetic boundaries as readers. That's like Kim is like the queen of that topic. She knows what
Yes, I am. That's near and dear to my heart. If you are going professional, energetic boundaries, super uber important. So we talked a lot about that.
that's.
And it's just vital for your well-being as a reader. So I'm glad we touched on it. That in and of itself could be its own little episode.
Let's do it. That would be a good episode. We just do that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. We got a
yeah. And
whole
so
list.
we got a whole list. Yeah, and so let us know in the comments what you wanted to talk about, because that could be one of the next ones. And then
Eh,
we talked about imposter syndrome. And we talked a lot about educating our public as readers, like how we go about doing that,
Mhm.
because they're, public, a lot of times they don't understand what we do. They don't really know what we do. There's still a lot of stereotypes, and so we talked a lot about the need to just always be, willing and to educate people, because it'll help you in your own practice, and it helps everybody by doing
True.
that.
Yes, indeed.
We talked about free versus paid readings, the ongoing question of, should you charge for a reading? When should you always charge? Should you never charge? When should you charge? So
Yeah,
that was the topic.
that was a good one too. That got a lot of conversation going. People offering free readings on, donation based on social media versus actually going to work for the hotlines or having your own reading business or doing readings for free. There were a lot of people who just wanted to do free readings because that's where they're at. That was a good topic.
Mhm. And then we talked about facing other people's stereotypes, which is a good one. And I have a
Yes.
feeling we're gonna get into that today. That's kind of
Yep.
part of today's topic as well. Um, to state the obvious. So when people have a stereotype of what it means if you're a party reader, or what it means if you're into tarot,
True.
yeah, just being aware that there are stereotypes about everything, all types of people, right? And
Very true.
you gotta like face them, stare them down. And then I think our last big topic was what we call ourselves. I don't know how we got on that somehow, right? Karen? We talked
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. How do we refer to ourselves? Are we, you know, a reader, a fortune teller? No, I don't do fortune telling. I don't do predictive reading. Like I only explore psychology with the cards, or no, I go all in. It's just, it's interesting. We're all unique, and so is how we refer to ourselves. But nevertheless, you're going to still face some sort of stereotype at some point, whatever you call yourself or identify with it.
And I love your term. You shared with us last time your term. You call yourself.
Energetic, the energetic forecaster.
I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're like forecasters, except we're forecasting on energy, and kind of like a meteorologist. Are they doing exact science too? Sometimes they totally miss the ball. Meteorologists, forecasters.
Hmm. Yeah, because it's almost like it's like I personally don't identify. I don't want to be called a fortune teller. I don't feel that I'm a fortune teller. And it's almost like we need a more modern term for what we do. I kind of
Yeah,
feel like we're sort of still stuck with that, and it's not really doing a service overall
true.
to the community. And it would be great if we could like come up with a really good, like I really like energetic forecaster, like and I noticed that too, like with people, channelers, right? The way they're starting to language what they do, because still channeling can have a really bad or
True.
spooky rap for people.
Right.
And I can't remember offhand, but like one person I really love is Lee Harris, and
Yes.
he says the same thing every time he comes on, and he's like, it's something similar. It's like I do a monthly energetic forecast, and
Hmm.
where I take the pulse on something something. But it's
True.
this language that most everybody, every time I hear it, I think that's so beautiful because it's not so woo. People can't relate. Like people can understand what that means. You
Right.
know.
And so even if we say energetic forecasters, there's still people like, uh-huh, sure, but when I can compare it to something like of nature, you know, you are going based on intuition, you're picking up on what the current trajectory people are on at the moment. And we know we believe in free will, you and I, we believe in that. That's like part of our personal philosophy. So that colors the reading as well. And then your own personal experiences, and then what comes up in the card, and you have an energetic forecast. Now, storms come suddenly out of nowhere, can throw the trajectory off. Out here, being in the Caribbean, the predictions are so wild and so often inaccurate. Like, whereas when I was in California, you could do a 10-day forecast, sunny, be dry, 10 days. Here, it's so unpredictable.
Yeah,
Kind of like how
wow.
people are, you know?
Huh.
We're predictable, but not predictable.
That's
Free will.
interesting. Wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I like that. I like, but we like not titles, but just knowing what we're about as readers. But not everybody even operates like that. There's people who are like, I'm just, I'm a fortune teller. Okay. So there's room for all of it.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
like I'm really finding that um, it comes to you like the more you really work on it and you're building your practice and stuff. Like you think you know who you are and what you're about, but like it takes time to figure that out.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can take making a website where you have to write copy and sitting down and being like, okay, well, no, this I guess this is who I am and this is how I do it, and then it helps you become clear in that way. So
That's true. Yeah, that's when you really think about it. Like, okay, how am I going to show up in the world? I'm creating um, my bio for my website, or I'm trying to express who I am and what I do. What's my philosophy? How do I go about my reading? You know, so
mhm.
there is some importance to it if you're going professional to think about it, figure out what it is your reading style is, how to say it quickly. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have someone here. Hi, Luna.
Yay! Welcome, Lena. Awesome. Glad you're here.
Yes,
So
glad you're here.
we're just getting started. We're just laying the groundwork and just did a little review of last time Kim and I were together. And we are making our way towards today's topic. I think did we cover all the bases? I think we went
Let's
through.
see. Not until okay. Yeah. So that's our recap, I believe, of what we covered just in episode 1. That's what all we talked about, what Donna just mentioned in one episode. So we covered a lot. Check out the video. I've started an email thing for you, Donna. I'll send to you with the links of different things we mentioned today, and then we can pop it
Yeah, I'll
into.
pop it in the description box so people can find it.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'll put to Natalia's original video so everybody can
Okay.
watch that. That's what sparked that. That's what sparked our talk today.
Yes.
Um, so we thought we would just make our way through. She had these three, main topics, which are shame, guilt, and judgment. Really cheery topics to talk about, but we'll do our best
That's like for
to keep
shadow.
them light.
Yes.
These are deep topics,
Yes.
but we'll do our best to keep it light and just shed some light on what is the deal with it with um, this phenomena that comes at us, because I bet like most people, once you really start making it known that you're into cards, you're gonna encounter this if you haven't already. You're gonna run across just casually telling somebody what you do or what you've been up to, and you just, even if they don't say it directly, the vibe comes. You catch the vibe, and you're like, oh, I'm not okay with this. Oh, they're looking at me in a very different way now that I've admitted that I do this, and I've literally had this with people I've known for years, who know me well, but somehow they didn't know that I was into this. So we're going to talk about all that. So,
That's right.
and so we're going to start with shame. And we were just saying right before we went live, I mean, I think shame was first in Natalia's title and the way she presented, but like it is a really good place to start because it's the root. It is the root of it, you know.
That's true.
Um, here's what I like. It's funny. I for years when I would like kid around and talking to people about like what was it growing up, somehow when people would say to me, about your how you grew up or whatever, and I would just be like, well, I was raised on shame and guilt, like Protestant shame and guilt, and then the more I thought about it, I thought, it's true for a lot of us. Not that long ago, like that's how you were kept in line as a kid. Like you were taught early on what was shameful and what was not shameful, and what you should feel guilty about, And now,
True.
like these days, it's like, oh, don't shame anybody, don't make anybody feel guilty. But like a lot of us adults, we're still working that out because that is how we were raised. We
True.
were like that was
Still with
in
us.
right.
Yes.
Anyway, you take it, Kim. There, I'm starting there. What do you? I've thrown down my cards. You go. Throw down. Tell me.
Well, what I liked about Natalia's videos, she basically opened up about the tarot horror film that's coming out. And what I appreciated about it was she was saying, oh, here comes the movie with all these like weird stereotypes and things, that's probably going to be built in. And then what does that trigger for us? Shame. Like, oh, and judgment, right? The shame, like, oh, I'm caught. I read the cards. It was like, and when people see this movie or they see the trailer or whatever, they're like, "Oh, don't you do tarot? Or isn't that what you do?" And then that moment, you feel gripped with the what? What is that? What's that feeling? Shame. Oh, here I am, spotlight on me. And like you said, Donna, it stems from when we were growing up. We had to feel shameful about not following status quo, not following what we're supposed to do religious wise, not, going with the norms. And it's just yet one more thing, right, that makes us the black sheep of the family, makes us different. And it's real. It's real. But at some point, if you are trying to become professional, you're going to have to do some reconciliation with that feeling, the shame, because now you are a reader. And I have seen readers who still hold a lot of shame, professional readers. And I see how it colors their readings and how it colors the way they see things versus people who are actively dealing with that pocket of shame that hangs out in our subconscious, that's in our being. So lots to say. I haven't seen the trailer yet either for this movie. I
I
haven't
I
seen
haven't
it.
either. I mean, I probably will at some point watch it. I've been hearing about it for a week or two now,
Yeah.
and I just purposely haven't watched it. But I will preface that saying like I'm not a horror film kind of girl. Like I don't watch horror films. I don't like violent films. So it's not my thing. If it was
Yeah.
like a comedy about tarot, I'd be like all over that. I'd be watching the trailer, but yeah. But
Yeah.
I had that same reaction of like, oh, like, come on, is that what we need right now?
You're
That's not
right.
gonna help us. Dang it. Yeah, I was just like, dang it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
just getting going good with this stuff, and then they have to come out with like a crazy old film about it. But
Yeah. Yeah. There's
there
a coming out. Donna asked what film. There's a horror. I guess it's horror or thriller.
I think it's a horror film.
Yeah. About it's called Tarot, I think. Right?
It's
Is that just
literally just tarot,
yeah? It's
one
about to
word
come out.
title.
Just like right there in your face. Boom.
Yeah.
And it's some kind of spirit. Like I don't know. Like if you do this reading and it unlocks. some like nasty presence on the world.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's about in that show.
Yeah.
To answer your question, Don. Sorry, Don.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. No, that's okay. So, yeah. So that I think that was part of that was probably what maybe prompted to start this. Um, yeah,
yeah,
but like Kim just said, at some point, if you're, you know, turning pro or whatever, you just really want to be upfront about, hey, listen, this is a big part of my spiritual practice. This is who I am. It's what I'm studying right now.
yeah,
Um, this is like you're gonna be kind of around working in the corners because judgment. Like, okay, judgment's one of our things we're gonna talk about, but like underneath judgment, or they're almost like kissing cousins, right? Like if you feel judgment towards people about this, then you may start to kind of like internalize that, and then that can morph into shame, right? So
true.
it's important to like acknowledge all this and talk about it, and we want to try to kind of talk about some of what we think are the origins of where this stuff has come from, to
Right.
understand it a little better, have some compassion for ourselves and like the culture. We're all part of this culture. We're all just trying to get along here together. And
True.
so, yeah,
And how to manage it. Yeah, like it's going to be there. But there's ways to manage it, and then there's some hard truths that come out. Like, if are you willing to sacrifice your love of tarot or your spiritual practice to make other people feel comfortable? Probably not. And that may mean that some people are going to have to fall away in order for you to fully express who you are. That's the risk of it. I signed up for it. This is what it is. I can no longer feel shame because it's so much a part of me and my spirituality. And I want to do this as a living. I get to say, oh, I'm a tarot reader. And then, yes, there's an awkward moment with some people who have judgment on what I do. And I can choose in that moment. Am I going to feel shame? There was a time I felt shame. Now I don't feel shame. But I
so
accepted the risk. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and another option is kind of what I did for a long time. Is like you could even closet about it. You could just like be doing it, but you're not really telling people, or you're kind of selective who you talk to about your card practice. So that and there's nothing wrong with that either. I'm kind of laughing at myself, but like sometimes it's a really good option for people. First of all, if you're new to it, you're trying to feel it out, and you already know, like, well, I'm from a super duper, Christian type of community that's not going to like it. I'm just going to keep it to myself. And there's nothing wrong with that. Listen, adults are allowed to do that about all kinds of things. Your business doesn't have to be everybody else's business. Um,
True.
so that is totally a viable option. Um,
Mm.
so, but yeah, do that, and then at some point, if you're like, gosh, I'm tired of this, or maybe now is sort of this turning point. If it's gonna, it just seems like this movie will now put tarot, like really in the public's consciousness even more than it already is. Then it's probably a good time for you know, for those of us really doing it and practicing and working professionally to be like, okay,
Yeah.
what's our new strategy here? Because
Yeah.
the winds are changing, and I
Yeah.
find it really like just from a kind of a marketing perspective, I just find it very interesting that this film is now coming out now when like tarot and oracle decks are so popular. You just have to walk into any bookstore and any large bookstore
True.
and see how much they're selling. It's like, oh, so is that I don't know. What do you think about that, Kim?
Yeah, I mean, now it's a great time to be in tarot and to oracle. It's a great time because now more than ever before, it's in your face, and it's not as taboo, which is nice. it's still an opportunity for us to educate others, though, about it. Like, stereotypes are inevitable. I mean, shoot, tax preparers get stereotyped. Like everybody has like this perception of what somebody does. So it's up to us to, I guess the onus is a little bit up to us to be like, okay, yeah, this movie's coming out. It's cheeky, it's fun, but we do make a difference. The work that we do, the spiritual work that we do, makes a difference for someone. Like it holds value. It matters. So, try not to poo-poo it too much. I mean, shoot, there's probably a ton of movies about priests, stereotypical stuff about priests. So, I don't know.
I think that's a really good point. For us to remember, like there's always stereotypes. Like everybody has to deal with stereotypes. So why should we think that as tarot readers, like we shouldn't have to deal with that, or we shouldn't have. And I'm saying there's always stereotypes, but there's always negative stereotypes, right? Like stereotypes that just aren't true or aren't fair, or just are cruel, or just plain cruel, right? Different
True.
ethnicities, people from different culture, you name it, whatever, different professions. So I think we have to kind of keep that in mind. Like we're not any different, and in a way, you could turn this around and ascribe to the old adage of like, hey, any PR is good PR.
True.
So maybe this is showing like, yeah, now there's a
That's
negative horror
right.
film because tarot decks are selling like crazy. People are getting into them. The kids all, the young people, they all love it. So
Right.
we could be like, hey, you have a vibe, you know? Like,
I mean, you can turn around and that's a perspective shift. Like, hey, okay, now it's really getting out there. People might Google Tarot and find out all this good information about what we do and why we do it and the pretty cards. So it could be a good thing. But I know that there's some of us, people that watch it. Um, I know that there's someone who's afraid to leave their dim self because they're afraid of what a family member might say. Um, that's still a very real thing. And how do you navigate that? How do you live in your truth? That's always like going to be a question, but only you can discern how safe and open you can be. Until
right.
you can be on your own, there may have to be some compromise, and that doesn't feel that great. But you still, when you get an opportunity to stand in your truth about what you believe, stand in it. If somebody says something weird, check them. If you don't feel like checking them, that's okay too. But you know, they have
Yeah,
to be safe. Yeah.
use your own discretion for sure, and always, yeah, stay in your own comfort zone. Be safe, and listen. Be willing to take baby steps. There's nothing wrong with baby steps and any good
True.
thing that you do. Like
Right.
when it's the right time to be like, all right, I'm gonna make it a little more known.
Yeah.
You know
Baby
that I'm into
steps.
cartomancy, but yeah. So
Yeah.
the shame piece. So like kind of coming back to the shame piece. Um, You want to? Should we talk? Let's talk about like the religious origins of that a little bit. You want to go there, Kim?
Yeah. That sounds great. You mean with the shame of using scripture against cartomancers? Like that, like biblical, like
Sure.
that religious angle?
Any of that? I'm just sort of like, yeah. So doing a little introducing the topic. So
Yeah.
I'll just do a brief and then I want Kim to like say whatever. So to me, I found it was interesting. Natalia was saying like, I think she said something like she hadn't really encountered shame, right?
True. That's true.
As a tarot person, and like that's the opposite of my experience. Like first of all, I didn't know anything about tarot or using cards for divination until I was like halfway through college. Like it just was not, it was not part of my life. It was not part of my upbringing. And I imagine like if I had, come home one day with a deck of cards and my parents found me like in my bedroom, they'd be like, oh, what are you doing? You know, you know,
Right.
I was raised Christian. I was, there were lots of things that were taboo that were, you just kind of knew as a kid, like, don't go there, don't talk about that with mom and dad. They're not going to be okay with that.
True.
And I don't think I'm the minority, at least in this country. I'm just speaking as an American here,
Right.
in this country, but that was my experience growing up. So
Yeah.
it's very much like the, in the fabric of the culture. It was for a long time, for decades, and
Right.
I've only seen it really switch in the last, like, I would say 10 years at the most, maybe.
Yeah.
4 cards. I don't know what do you have to say about that?
Yeah. I mean, I have an interesting upbringing because I grew up in Northern California, and so if y'all know, like North is like it's pretty open. Like the Bay Area is where I grew up. So I knew of the woo woo stuff, and I dabbled as a teenager, but my family was Christian, and my parents were loving and accepting of it. So if I went to the bookstore and read books and about astrology, numerology, and all of that, they didn't care. But it was their loved ones, their parents, their sisters and brothers who lived in Mississippi, very rural, who had judgment, about people who do tarot. So if a relative would come over that is like very Christian, a Baptist, whatever the case may be, and they're coming over to my house, I would feel the need to put away my things, put away my books, put away, later in life, my debt. So I was blessed. I grew up in Northern California. My parents were cool with it. But then as started going out into the extended family structure in my life, there was judgment. My friends were accepting throughout my entire life as a young person, as an adult. So, but it runs the gamut, right? Everybody it's like a varying degree. So it was interesting that Natalia never, like, it's a novel concept that people would have to struggle with it. But not everybody, even in our country, did. But I know people who do
Yeah,
struggle. And it's sad.
yeah, and Care Bear here is saying, I grew up Southern Baptist. Shame surrounds me.
Yes, right? It's like a
Just
way
yeah,
of like breathing. I must
yeah,
feel shame.
yeah. I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So yeah, so that that there's that, and we're just talking Christianity because that's what Kim and I know because we grew up in that kind of family system. But I don't know what it is for
other religious, right?
other religions, but I imagine that maybe they're somewhat. Um, but then to kind of counter that, so there are cultures where divination is very much a part of it.
True.
Like I'm thinking of Annabelle Wen, who often talks about like the ancient parts of her tradition. We Westerners, we just like we have this kind of overlay of Christian guilt and shame and like but there are cultures where it's very much it's part of the ancient tradition to
That's
divine
true.
people use, right? So
I mean, even in what Catholicism, I mean, many of, I think, the Abrahamic religions have this thing where it's like, oh, can't, no prophesizing unless you're somebody designated in the Bible. But I thought Catholicism was okay with tarot readings. I could be wrong. And please, everyone, educate us in the comment section about what was your experience like growing up. What, if you want to share your religious background,
yeah.
was it supportive or not of divination? Not just tarot cards, but cartomancy, but any, divination. I'm curious.
I'm
Let's talk
totally curious
about
too. Yeah,
it. Yeah,
definitely share with it. Because it's good to hear people's stories. And again, we're talking in general terms. I mean, no one can really say like, oh, Jewish people do not, believe in
right.
tarot card. Like it's just your experience, right? Like what
True.
yeah. So here's another comment. Let's get this up. My husband doesn't like it. We married before I found tarot, but he tolerates it enough. It's still not enjoyable though. It's tension.
Yeah, I know that's right.
So
You're like, I'm not giving it up.
yeah,
Yeah, that's another scenario, right? Your significant other.
right.
That's pretty in close proximity
Mhm.
to, to as close as you can get when you're your loved one. And I agree. I was in a similar situation where I got really into tarot cards well after my husband and I were together. But I made like a big announcement one day. I'm like, I have something I need to tell you. And he's like, what? I'm like, I'm into tarot cards. And he's like, okay, what's that mean to me? So he was like that. Sometimes it annoyed him, like if I'm always busting out the cards, even on trips and stuff. And I'm like, hold on, I gotta do a reading, But he's pretty accepting. At first, he questioned it, like, what does this mean? What do you mean cards? But then he saw me doing readings for other people, and he's like, oh, wow. Okay, I get it. But again, I've heard of friends. I have friends who have significant others and aren't into it at all. Like, so
Yeah, that's tricky. That's tricky, and no one,
that is
no one
tricky.
can really tell you like how to handle that. There's no right, wrong, good, bad. You have to navigate your own relationship and figure that out. You know, again,
That's
which is
true.
why it's so important to have community. Is what we're trying to build here. Like, we are a particular little niche of people who are into cards, and not everybody gets it. Some people are like, what is that? So
True.
it's good to have places where you can go, where you can talk about these things and figure out, how to handle certain things, how to work things out.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and if I was dating, like if I was me back in my 20s and I was in love with tarot or whatever, I'd totally like be upfront. It'd be like how I was as a single mom dating in my 20s. Like, when I got kids, I love tarot. I'm not giving it up.
Right.
I'm not giving up my children, I'm not giving up my cards. So
That's who I
you got
am.
to take it. You got to take it or leave it. I'm not hiding nothing. I'd rather be by myself forever. I'm like, so yeah, but, you know,
Yeah.
it can be challenging. That's another challenging scenario where shame could be a big problem in a relationship. I love that Care Bear is like, he does things I don't like either, but I accept it and we just keep going. You and me, you do you. You may not understand it all the way. So,
Yeah, and that makes total sense to me. That's what any relationship
yeah.
is about. Right? Yeah.
Oh,
So, okay, let's move on to psychological projections because Natalia
mhm.
spent a lot of time talking about that.
True.
And again, I don't know if we said up front. Did I say up front? But so Natalia she is a psychologist. She works as a psychologist, and so that's her perspective on these things. So it's something to be mindful of is that we all throw things at each other. This is just like who we are as human beings. It's how we kind of figure out who we are. We look at another person and we see certain things reflected back to us, and it could be things that we love or things that we don't love, and then
Right.
we throw other things on people, and it's just it's ever present. You can't. It's just the way it works, right? It's the way the human psyche works, and it's really good to kind of remember that. And so if you run up against people being like, no, that's dark and scary and spooky. Well, that who knows why they believe that? They could have been taught that as a child. They could have been taught that by their religion. They could have had a friend when they were younger that had cards and like used them to scare people, or try to make people think they were more powerful than that. Like you just never know what someone's experience is.
True.
So you've got if you this to be mindful of that, to just sort of be navigating that. Like you can just be aware of that, but you don't have to take it on. It's sort of what the point she was making. You don't have to take on other people's projections, right? And we know that with all kinds of things. Like somebody comes to work one day and you can just see written all over them like they have had a bad morning. And they're being
Right.
obnoxious to everyone. Like you don't have to take that on. You don't have to be like, oh, I guess I did something wrong. Like, no, okay,
Right.
you know,
Because that's not yours. That's just their projection. I mean, what's interesting about projection is that a lot of times we grew up like this is right, this is wrong. And so it starts out innocent enough. Our parents are like, don't mess with witchcraft, don't do that, don't get into cards. And it starts out good enough. And so we start to be like, okay, that's our belief. But then as we grow up and change and grow, that'll come out and express itself, even amongst other tarot readers. I was venting to you about this, where people were projecting, even tarot readers have judgments about people who are fortune tellers, um, people who do predictive readings, people who work on the hotlines. Where does that come from? They're also tarot readers too. Like, oh no, I only do, readings that are about how to live your better life or be spiritual tools. I judge those who do predictive readings. Where does that come from? It comes probably from childhood programming. Like, well, that's wrong. And it even shows up amongst each other. Amongst each other.
yeah, for sure. Again, back to mine because we all it's just like we're taught how to judge from such an early
Yep,
age. We're
that's right.
taught how to judge before we're really taught how to love and appreciate.
Right,
And so then we just kind of keep acting that out in so many ways.
right.
Um, the
And we're
other
taught to be
interesting thing,
shameful.
yeah, right, and we're, and oftentimes it's just parents, just trying to keep your child safe, right? So
Right.
but then it turns into other things. It turns into other things, and like, oh, I did something bad, or
And I'm wrong. And
I'm wrong. I
yeah,
I am bad. There's bad behavior, and then there's being a bad person, right? And we never want to internalize or teach children to internalize that they are bad.
right.
There's bad behavior, or there's behavior that might lead to danger when you're too young, you know,
That's
but it doesn't make you bad. And I
right.
think that's a lot of what we're trying to wrestle to the ground here, like, yeah, is this truly bad behavior? It's not bad. It can't be bad behavior anymore. I don't see it. It's ridiculous. Like a
Yeah.
lot of people are doing it. It's just
And
like,
everybody could take something that's good and turn it into something bad. You could take Christian, some sort of church, or pastor or whatever, and he could totally turn something that's so good and wholesome. Let's, love you, congregation. I'm taking your tithings and I'm going off and hiring ladies of the night with it, and I'm doing all this stuff. Anything could be turned into that. There's black energies, dark energies, light energies. But the vast majority of us is doing good. I believe. I could be wrong.
I
Could be
totally,
wrong.
I agree with that. And it's just like, yeah, assume people's innocence and assume people's goodness. you
Right.
know like, and so we can do that too with fellow readers. I wanted to go back to that point you just made about when other readers when we judge each other.
Yeah.
um yeah, it's like, where does that come from? It's just sort of this basic kind of, I don't know, primal urge to feel superior. Well, I'm a
Yep.
better kind of reader because I read like this but I don't read like that. And I
Mhm.
love the point that Natalia made. She spent a long time kind of talking about the history of using um, images as a therapeutic tool. And at
Right.
one point, she made a comment of, didn't she make a comment like, that tarot readers were like therapists ahead of their time, that the early tarot readers.
Yes, she
Didn't she
did. And
make
I love
that? I
the
think she.
comment.
And
I
I
think
thought,
she did.
yeah.
Yes.
So, we're all just. I feel like whether you're just using the cards for yourself, you're drawn to the cards for personal exploration, or whether that leads to that you want to read and help others. We are trying to help ourselves or trying to help others with the cards.
Right.
It
Yeah.
comes from a really great healing place, a giving place, a place of wanting to connect with other people, help other people.
Right.
So assume
And
innocence.
it's and even with like also people judge about like people always getting readings. Oh, well, all breeders are trying to do is collect money. Even people can get hooked on getting therapy. Therapy is still a good thing. It's still a very powerful tool to help people, right? But everybody has the potential to abuse something, including Terrell. So it's like, you know, that's where the education piece comes in. And that's why I like us having these dialogues and conversations about these topics. Because it's like I need people to kind of shift their understanding of it. And you can then start to surrender some of that judgment. We all have it in us. I love your point too about um, the the need to feel superior, the superior spiritual being. I'm right. My belief systems are pure. You know, you're wrong. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a lot I could say about that. So, there's nothing like this spiritual ego, right? We all have egos to wrestle with,
Mhm.
right? I mean, that's a whole other topic.
That's
But
true.
spiritual ego is a particular kind of ego that can quickly get out of hand. Again, going back to whatever your fundamental religious training was, or if you had no religious training, say you just spiritual guidance as a child, and
Right.
all of a sudden you hit adulthood or middle life, and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to understand what the different meanings are of things, and it's easy to get kind of drawn into like I have to find it. It's like,
Yeah.
and
Those
they're just
dynamics, right? Those archetypal dynamics. Like, yeah, it's easy for all of us to fall into those roles, like the persecutor and the persecuted. It's just our
well,
default.
it is human. It's somewhat human nature, and then it's the culture, right? We're all products of the culture that we're in,
True.
and so if we just kind of keep that in mind, I'm just culturally curious. Like I love that there's so
Yeah,
many different paths for people. Like I've
I
gone to
know.
comment up here, and about pagan, Native American, herbal medicine, astrology, tarot, and oracle. Yeah, like
Yeah. The
yeah, I think just if it,
metaphysical, yeah, the
yeah,
natural world. Oh, you're not out of place.
no,
Hmm. This
no.
is exactly what I want to see. Yes, it's like let's learn more about each other, and then you realize there's a lot of similarities. There's differences, but that's what makes us unique. In this tapestry of life we've got going on. So
Absolutely, and to have choice. We're so lucky here
that's
in the U.S.
true.
But a lot of people live in countries where don't have as much choice as we do, and so we can choose. We can choose what spiritual discipline works for us, what different
Right.
practices, what therapeutic practices work for us,
Right.
and and just have it be okay for us, and we don't have to be judging what other people are doing, as long as you're not doing any harm.
Right.
Do no harm. The great Wiccan read, like do
Do
no
no harm.
harm.
Right.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
things to keep in mind. Okay, we got some chatters chatting away here. What we got?
Let's
Let's see.
see. Oh, I
Oh,
like
here.
this.
I'll put
Yeah.
this one up from Canada. I'm scared of tarot. Dude. Everyone else is big in my life. Me too. I really, truly. Until a friend
Mm,
introduced me in person and opened my whole world up. I realized it wasn't evil. It was a tool. It's a
yeah.
tool. We are the magic.
Right.
Absolutely.
We are the magic in it. OMG. I love that. We
Yeah.
are. And
That
it's
that's really similar for me. I had been exposed in college to tarot. I had a friend who did a reading for me, and then another friend who sent me to her reader to have a reading. But it was like quite a few years later, I still didn't have a deck. I don't know. And I was like an adult out in the world. And I had a good friend who was 10 years older than me. And we were just like having a chat one day. And somehow, I think I don't even remember. She brought up tarot and she said, well, you would really like that. You would really be into that. And I was like, yeah, I've already seen it. I don't really understand. And I'm sure I still had some of that, like, I'm not sure that it's not like, a bad thing. She's like, oh, no, it's just like, it's cards. And, she kind of gave me the basic gist of it. And this I do remember, she's like, but it's one of those things like your first deck of cards, she's like, someone needs to give you your first deck of cards. So I'm going to give you the first deck. I was like, oh, okay. It was like this whole new concept. And so she got me my very first deck of Rider-Waite, little mini deck of Rider-Waite cards. And I had that for like years, and I didn't do anything with it. I didn't know what to do with it, but I kept them. Like, okay, I've got to take the tarot cards, So
Yeah.
it took me years. It was like all these steps. First this friend that I really trusted, I respected her. She kind of gave me the lowdown on tarot. Like, no, don't listen. It's not evil. That's like old wives' tales. Don't worry about
Yeah.
that. It was like bit by bit.
Yep. Bit by bit. Even that too, like I felt a whole bit of shame about buying my first deck. There was nobody, I suppose if I really set the intention, someone give me a deck, it would happen. But it didn't. And I just felt shame, like, oh, I'm gonna buy my deck. The old wives' tale, the whole bit about like what would my very super religious aunt say when she saw me playing with my cards. I do not even want to think about it. But step by step, right?
Step
You
by
take
step.
those steps and you get there and you get further along, you get further along. Now I'm like, shoot, I'm like on Kickstarter, like, what deck am I gonna get next? I'm like, but back the first one that I bought was like, no, I'm living on the edge. I'm like,
I wonder how that got started. That whole thing of like someone has to hire you and first step.
I know the
Where did that?
origins of that. Yeah,
Where did that come
where
from?
did that come from? Old
Okay,
wives'
so
tale.
I have another funny story I'm going to tell here. Um, so yeah, my whole like Christian background. There was no tarot cards in my house growing up. Although there were always playing cards. Some in some houses like even playing cards. That's not okay. But my parents were totally fine with playing cards. But this is okay. But you know what they were in my grandmother's house, which is right up the
Wow.
road. There was an old Ouija board, like made out of wood, like a
That's
really vintage Ouija board.
oh,
And
that's cool.
I brought that home one day. It's the whole thing, but you know. Anyway, my
Yeah.
grandfather lived alone. My grandmother was in a nursing home for many years, and so my grandfather was just there rattling around in this old farmhouse on his own. And I would just like walk up the road, go visit him, and I would wander around the house and just like I was such a snoop. But it was this place of like, where's I never knew her. She was really I was like 4, and she went she had a stroke and she was in nursing home. And so I would wander around like a child, just trying to like understand like who is she in this big house empty, and sneak around. And so one day I found these Ouija board like, in the front parlor, like classic. They're like in the closet
Oh,
in the
that's
front
cool.
parlor. And I think I must have like brought it home, or I don't know. Somehow that Ouija board, came down the road, and for years that was my lap desk. Remember how we always used to have like a lap desk and they'd sit on the couch or whatever propped up? I did all my studying
Oh my
on
gosh,
that
on the
Ouija board.
Ouija board?
On that Ouija board. And I think, I'm not positive, that's a long time ago, you guys. It's like well over 40 years ago or whatever. But I think like often my father would be like, what's she? I sure as heck use that
You know
Ouija
what?
board. And I didn't even really know what it was. There was no piece to it or whatever. It was just like, it
Oh,
was a
like
really
I
good,
forget what they call that. That piece.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Oh,
it went to college with me. I took it to college because it was like literally that's how I did my homework. So it
oh
went
my
to
gosh.
college with me. Yeah.
That's
Anyway, it's just a
cool.
little
I
tangent.
love that.
Isn't
That's
that
so
hysterical?
cool. Yes.
But really, the point of that story is to say, like, okay, I was raised like, oh, tarot cards are bad, but like, where did that Ouija board come in Grandma's house? And there were 2 of them actually. There was another one. Like, So probably my guess this probably was my, I would say, if not my grandmother's, it might have been her mother's, because it was a house that came down through the lines. It was really her mother's house. You know,
I
back in
bet,
the day, turn of the century,
I
they
bet
were
you
doing.
they have
Oh,
magical powers, and that's where you got yours from.
I agree. I think my great grandmother, like, she may have she may have been some kind of snake for people. I don't have any proof of that, but like
That's
those
so
Ouija
cool.
boards, yeah.
That's you're
So,
saying that.
but like, so I offer that story more in the spirit of like, if you are struggling with the shame or guilt or whatever from your upbringing, just know that like things come around, things change, and 100 or
That's
more
true.
years ago, those Victorians, they were into all kinds of radical, interesting spiritual stuff.
That's true.
You don't know. You don't know what your great grandmother might have been doing back then when she was young like you back in the day.
Right?
You know?
I mean, they're not here to tell us, but we have the relics, the past with the Ouija board. And were there any movies about Ouija boards? I'm sure there were. I'm sure there were movies that involved
Probably.
Ouija board.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's also in pop culture, and we're
Right.
still talking
For
about Ouija
sure.
boards.
For sure. Okay, we're
Well,
only on number three under shame, which is our first point. We're going slow here, but that's okay. We may come back because it's a big topic.
yes, it is a big topic. It really
So number
is.
three is the female perspective on this and misogyny. I thought we would just touch on this a little bit. Like,
Okay.
so, typically it's women who are, like we see here on Tarot too, right? There's a large percentage of women as opposed to men or people who identify as female who are into the cards.
Right.
And, I think this is something to keep in mind too. I'm not saying that this is all of it, but, there's so many ways in which the culture tries to shame women, tries to control women, tries to tell them what they should and shouldn't do about all kinds of things, especially their own bodies, right?
Right.
So, you could keep that kind of in your whole larger perspective as you're wrestling with these kinds of issues of like, is it okay what I'm doing here, or how secretive do I want to be? That you know,
Yeah.
it's there's the culture is sneaky that way. It really is.
Yeah.
What do you think about that thing?
I guess with the well, first of all, I do know it does feel very female dominant. And there's plenty of my guy friends who, even my son, he reads tarot. So, I guess I was a little perplexed on that part of it. Do you mean like the agency, like we still have free agency, just like we do as feminine? I guess with Natalia's video, I didn't know or fully grasp that
This is
part of
my
it.
own thing. I don't think she touched on this at all.
Okay, good.
This is
Okay, good, good.
totally like
Good.
I kind of wanted to
Yeah.
mention that maybe some of this shaming and
Oh, okay.
this
Now I see what you
judgment
mean.
this
Yeah,
judgment around using cards or being somebody
yeah.
who divines, it's been there for
That's
centuries,
true
and it was
too.
often the wise women who people
Yes.
would go to for help to see deeply, to understand things. Often, the village healer did all
Yeah,
these things. It's probably why
yeah.
we were drawn to all these because, she could heal and give you herbs, and she'd
See,
do a little
see.
divining and send you home with a
Right.
little something, something to help. There's a whole history of that.
And now I see. Okay, now I get it. So there's this whole also culture of shaming again, and women are very much, I mean, men too. I mean, it's just the culture that there is a misogynistic era of it where I'm shaming you for tapping into those intuitive abilities. That's not using logic. That's not math. That's not science. That's not concrete. And then just again, another way of poo-pooing what we are innately really great at. Intuition and the emotional realm. and then I don't know, making us feel small about it. But we are in this generation, we're no longer going to feel small about it. That's a strength to be highly intuitive, highly, have a high emotional intelligence about yourself, male or female, whatever sex that you identify as. That's really valuable, more so than even math.
It's certainly practical. It's very
It
practical,
is
right?
practical.
Because it's learning to tap into your own intuition, and on every day, it doesn't matter who you are or how you language it. Like we all have to rely on our intuition, our gut,
Yeah,
to
and
make
some of us are
decisions.
really tapped in. And those women, like you said, back in the day, um, over centuries, highly tapped in, healers, helping in a way that only they can, and even that being minimized. Well, that's not science. That's not math.
Yeah,
All of it can coexist.
it can. It can, especially if we name it. We're just trying to kind of like put a name to some of these things, right? Like
Right.
instead of just like, no, it's uncomfortable. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to ruffle her feathers. It's like, well,
Hmm.
when they come
Let
up
me
on
play
like,
small. Don't want to ruffle feathers.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now that dark movie's out, so everybody's gonna
Right.
be, yeah. Okay, so I think we kind of wrestled that all to the ground, and we already talked about stereotype and ignorance, right? We got to watch out for stereotypes, even in with cards, and we just at every turn
Oh God, yeah.
be willing to educate people. And sometimes the best way you can educate people is just talk. You know what I mean? Like people are like, just I often just kind of say, okay, Spirit, where do you want me to go with it? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
give me
You
the
want to
right words for the right amount for this person. What is it that they really need to hear from me? Because a lot of times people can ask you things and the vibe can be a little funny. Like, oh gosh, they're gonna shame me, or they're gonna judge me, or
You now projecting on them. Like,
right? Like because it's just it
yeah.
registers on our radar of like, oh, the energy feels weird all of a sudden just because I brought that up, and instead of
Right.
thinking like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, but just be open, be willing to, because usually people are just curious. They're just curious, and then they get a
Right.
little insecure, or they don't know what to say, and suddenly they see you in a new light. And the thing too with like being a card reader, I've noticed this over the years, or even, I did feng shui for a long time. And so if I would like mention, at a cocktail party, like as soon as you say that you do something like that, people get uncomfortable because they have these,
Oh yes.
I'm sorry, but like kind of silly ideas that like I'm walking around all the time with a screen and I can read your mind and I know I can see every dark thing that you ever did. And
That's true.
like,
Yeah.
no, first of all, I don't want that. I don't have that. And like, and second of all, that, in my opinion, like that's oracle abuse. Like that's using my gifts to like be up in everybody's business. I don't do that. And what they
I got
don't know,
my
of
own life
course,
to live. Yeah.
and what they don't know is if you walked around like that all the time, you would be so zapped and exhausted. Like you can't keep your eye that open all the time, and you don't
Yeah.
want to see all that there is to see anyway. So
No.
again, like just know that people need to be educated. They just need to know that, oh, you're still a regular person, and they
Hmm.
may ask you wacky things. Like people ask me some of the wackiest things. I wish I could remember. But like, I tell them what they do, and then or they'll start talking about something that they think is related
Yeah.
to divination that in my book isn't. But you can't. Sometimes I just sort of go with it because it's. I don't know if I'm communicating well, but it's just still like
But
people
I
like
get it. Yeah.
like okay, so take it, Kim.
They
Give us a
go
story.
all they go all wild. Like I've had friends, classmates from like high school or whatever, and we'll run in, we hang out and run into each other. And they're like, oh, you can tell me when I'm gonna die, huh? I'm like, I don't do that. Like I don't, no, like we have certain different ethics, reader to reader, and I'm one of those that I'm not doing that. Or they'll just be like, oh, so you think you can tell me your future or my future or whatever, and it's like you can take the little sarcasm out. Again, this is my opportunity to educate them on what I do with the comics, why I do love them so much. And usually I have a deck in my purse. So then I like bust out the cards, like, look, let me show you something. And then I, start shuffling. But there are times when I'm a full-time tarot reader, right? So that's far different than when I was an analyst. It's a far different job. And you could be like, oh, I'm an analyst, or oh, I'm a teacher. And nobody's gonna have any real judgment about it. But when you're like, oh, I'm a tarot reader, there's always that inevitable, like, you almost can feel their eyes rolling, but they're not,
Oh
like,
yeah.
you don't see it,
Oh, I
but
can feel it.
you can feel it. And then you have to ask yourself, do I give a damn? How am I feeling today? Am I ready? What am I like? If they go there, am I ready? It's always like this.
Yeah.
But most people have been pretty gracious. There's some people you can feel their little imaginary eyes rolling back in their head. You can feel that. But most people, for me, what I've encountered in these years, they're like, oh, tarot reader? Okay. And they're curious more so than anything.
Yeah.
Then you get that, the
Yeah.
proverbial,
Right.
the emoji with the eyes up.
With the eyes roll. Yeah, and to kind of state the obvious here, most of us who read cards, we read cards because we are more sensitive than the average
Right.
people. We pick up things, and so like yeah, somebody told me, oh my god, as soon as I say that, I can feel what they're thinking, but like you don't have to take that on. You know what I mean? And I
Right.
try to just stop myself, like don't assume, like just don't assume.
Yeah, that's
So,
good.
like
That's good advice. Don't
don't
assume.
assume.
Yeah.
It may feel like, oh, they're gonna be weird or whatever, but like if you are strong and in yourself and you feel good about yourself, that you can shift that really quickly. So even
Right.
if they have a little moment of like, oh, who is this person? I thought I knew who she is, but I don't know. I just act normal. I just kind of keep, conversing, acting normal, ask questions, and
Yeah.
being willing to answer people's questions.
Yeah.
And just kind of knowing in advance, like Kim said, they can go all wild on you. You know what I mean? You're having a perfectly adult, like conversation, and then you tell them what you do, and the next thing they're like telling you,
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Like what?
yeah,
And I like, so with guilt, because are we on our guilt topic?
yeah, it's time. We should definitely move on to guilt. We're already at over an hour here, so yeah.
I know. It's
Let's
like,
see
see how this, yeah, we'll see
time
about
goes.
guilt. I think sometimes I could probably, there was a time where I would have felt guilt about doing true crime type of readings. Um, Not so much guilt about doing readings. I don't really experience that kind of guilt. If someone in the audience, if you watch this on replay or if you're in the chat now, do you feel guilty about being a tarot reader or using tarot or having readings done for you? I don't feel guilty about that, but I think there may be certain types of readings that readers could feel guilty about. Predictive readings, predictive timing readings, fortune telling, true crime readings. So, do you feel it? That would be my question for the audience. Do you feel guilt? How
Mhm.
about you, Donna? Do you feel guilt?
Not anymore. Not anymore, but definitely there for a long time. Yeah, I, I just wasn't comfortable. I don't know if I would have called it guilt per se, but it's just like I was only comfortable talking about this in a certain company,
Ah, yes.
sharing that like I consulted the cards, that I was like starting to collect decks of cards,
Oh,
and if
yes.
it would come up, or I'd be like, oh,
That's
so
guilt.
the artwork, that's totally guilt, right? Guilt is sneaky, just like shame. We were going to talk about
Look
that.
at all these decks I got. Total guilt.
Okay, all right, here's our comment, Kim. Look, Care Bear just put this in. Why do you need so many tarot decks? Me. Why do you need so many shoes? Why do you need so many
Versus,
tools in your
right?
garage? Why do you
Yes.
need so many? You're like, yeah, it's just You're right.
Yeah,
You know,
that's true. That's a good one with guilt. That's why I was just saying. Why do you need so many decks? I don't know. I like them.
they're pretty. They talk to me.
But that
Yeah.
panga guilt, it can have you feeling away about your collecting habit if you
Hmm.
don't address it and be clear about it for you, like what is for
Hmm.
you to do. If you ain't, overspending and you're responsible, it's your thing. We get this one life, allegedly. But,
Yeah.
so thank you, Care Bear.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know what? We haven't really talked about that. So like the guilt in general, that but like underneath all of that, a lot of the time, I think why we do we hide or we're careful about who we talk about this because I'll speak for myself. Like for a long time, I was concerned people would think I was a little nutty, like when I'm mentally unbalanced somehow. Like that's sort of the white elephant in the room that we're not talking about. We're talking about all these other things, but it comes out of that. Like nobody wants, you know what I mean? Most people don't want to be thought of as you lack, you're not so
Whack.
rational. You're a little
Right.
whack. You're a little whack. You're a little unstable. Okay, like
Yes.
and so that's
You-
what causes us to feel guilty, to hide, to feel shame,
Right.
right?
That's true. They're like, you think your little cards are going to get you out of this situation? Actually, yes.
They
Like,
might. If I choose the right deck, they just might.
yeah, they might. Yeah, do. And then there's that guilt. Like, that's true. And people have vast amounts of books, libraries. One day, I envision having a library. I kind of do a library of decks. And there's no judgment. Even if the books are like trash romance novels. I don't know. They're okay. They're allowed to do a little escapism with their books.
Right. That is such a great point, right? People with big libraries of books, we usually look at them like, wow, they are really, at the very least, we say, oh, they're well read, they're very well educated.
Right.
No, they have a sharp.
We
Listen, I have a lot. I love books. I have a lot of books. Okay, like,
have books.
but yeah, we need to maybe really begin to own that with our. And a lot of I've heard a lot of tarot readers say this. They instead of saying they have a collection, they say it's my library. My
Mhm.
decks are my library or my tools.
Yes, my tools. I love the tools analogy. You
But
know,
we can like own that more. We can stand in that more and be like, yeah, no, I don't know. I'm
wow.
just into tarot and oracle, but like, I have several hundred decks and I've worked with all of them and studied them.
That's right.
Like we can stand in the what would you call that? Not just the power of that, but like the
This is
dignity
my
of that.
truth, my
Yeah.
experience. Yeah, I'm standing in that. And I'm like Luna too, where I don't care if you have four. I know people who have 4,000 decks. Like they have a lot of decks. I don't have any judgment, but it's so interesting how there's so many people who make it their business that they need. And again, it's most likely your fellow tarot reader person. It's not somebody who's on the street like, wow, you have 200 decks. They don't know. It's the people in our group too. Like,
In our community. Yeah.
they got 4,000 decks. I'm like, it's their business. I'm gonna go hang out in their library.
Yeah. Totally. Here's another great comment from Luna. They love it when you read for someone who was once a skeptic but then open after experiencing it. Kim, you must have a great story about that. Kim has some of the best stories,
Too
tarot
many to
stories.
count. Yes,
Come
too many
on.
to count. Like there's the in-person one where I'm at my daughter's elementary school and I'm part of the fall festival like experience. I'm the tarot reader tent. And some burly guy was coming to see his kid's artwork. And he's like a construction worker and he amuses himself at first and sits down, plops down, and he wants a reading. I'm just doing a 3 card spread, $5, goes to the kids, whatever at school. And I do the reading. And by the end of it, he's like, okay, impressive. Okay. Like,
Wow. That's Yeah.
Yeah. So I love those moments. You know,
Mm.
it's especially when it's face to face and you can see them light up. You could see them be wow. You know,
You could see
I
them start to
love,
kind of get like, oh, yeah,
yeah,
she does really know something here that I don't know.
yeah.
That's cool.
So, yeah. I have many more, but that's the one that always stands out of my mind because I'm at my daughter's school. I'm already feeling a way about being like the one of that's part of the entertainment shtick that I'm doing for the fall festival or whatever. And I'm like, here
That's
comes
great.
Mr. Construction Worker
That's
who
yeah.
doesn't believe it.
I've never read in that way. I would like to have that kind of experience. Yeah, I would
Yeah,
yeah,
it's fun.
be really fun. So
Yes. How did you know that? It's my favorite. Oh, wow. Or they get quiet and you're like, uh-oh, either I said something really off or they're like, wow. And usually they'll say, oh, wow. How did you know that?
mhm, that's cool. So I think we're wrapping up here with guilt. Um, we talked about, do you feel it, why we feel it, and the only other thing I was going to say, but like, some really seasoned readers, you may think like, oh no, I don't, I don't feel that, I don't feel nothing, but like, I don't know, I would just encourage like, yeah, sit with that. I think it's around for all of us because I think it's really part of the culture that we live in, whether it's
True.
directly about tarot and oracle, but divination in general, things psychic, things a little too fringe. It's still very
True.
much there, part of the culture. And I think it's
Right.
good to just sort of like acknowledge that and think about. I think it's very sneaky. I think guilt and shame are very sneaky.
Right.
Um, so it's
I
something to
do.
just be mindful of. You know.
Right. I think so. And it is sneaky. So, yeah, I think that if you sit with it, you may realize, oh, that is something that comes up. Just like we sat with them, like, wait a minute, what would I feel guilty about? I have a number of texts I got. So if you sit with it for a minute, you can realize, like, oh, there is a pocket of guilt here somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And awareness helps you to root it out. It's
Yeah.
like it's in the shadows. It's not
Yeah.
good.
It's
It's
like a
not
shadow
bad. It's
thing.
in the shadow. Yeah, and you're just illuminating it, calling it
Yeah.
what it is. Yeah.
Name it and claim it. It's like, okay, yeah,
Mhm.
maybe there's some guilt around a little bit. So, and then you
Yes.
can figure out what you want to do with it. You know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, and so judgment. We can just touch on judgment quickly here. I mean, we've kind of been talking about judgment throughout a lot, right?
True.
Like, what else do we want to say about judgment?
Let's see. Well, we do. Yeah, you're right. We actually judgment is like what weaves in between the guilt and the shame and everything,
Yes.
right?
Oh, that's a great way of thinking about it. It's like,
Yeah,
right, a little
because
sneaky.
we probably would be feeling shame or guilt if we weren't feeling persecuted or judged. Like, so,
Yeah.
yeah, I like what you have here. Judge ye not, and ye shall not be judged. We in the tarot community, for the vast majority of the people I've encountered, we get that. But you are going to every now and then butt up against someone who is judging you. You'll get, like, if you ever start your Facebook business page, let's say, or whatever social media you're on, and you're starting your tarot business, for example, and you may run a little ad, and then all of a sudden the algorithm hits wrong, and you end up getting a Bible thump, and then they just feel called to just tell you about yourself, and then some. They're judging you, and then you just have to. You'll start to get a tougher skin. You'll every now and then there'll be an episode of somebody judging you. But the vast majority of people are tolerable, I think. I could be wrong.
Yeah. And that's a great thing to energize. Like, yeah, I want to believe that. So I just try to remind myself, like, yeah, just don't bother. Most people are good,
They try.
or most people they're trying, or like they don't really, it's not. people are mostly, we're all kind of mostly concerned about ourselves anyway, right? We spend a
Right.
lot of time and energy worrying, what are people going to think about me? But most people are so wrapped up in their own lives, their own selves, you
True.
know, you
That's
know,
true.
you don't have to worry about that or take that
That's
on.
right.
So do we have any more tips? I wrote tips for dealing with people judging you as a pro reader. Any tips on that? Like
Well, aside
what's
from,
worked for you?
yeah, I mean, you're gonna get it. I look at these as moments of opportunity to strengthen my inner resolve. So you're gonna get it, like I mentioned before about the tougher skin. Do things anyway. Take baby steps anyway. If you're a pro reader, you know this journey is not for the faint at heart. There will be judgment, but chances are, like you said, if you are going into a situation and you're not quite sure, don't just err on the fact that people are going to be judging you. Go into it with the energy of like, people, I just want to share and give what I got. And you'd be surprised. I have clients who are ministers who are very much devout Christians or, very religion, not just Christianity. And if I had this cloak of me judging people like, oh, I know they're going to judge me, I'd be closing off a lot of people, a lot of clients that I could be helping. So just as we want them to be open to us, be open to the possibility that people are going to be open and accepting to you. And then if they're not, and they're low vibrational that day, that's their business. It's our job. What is ours to do is to keep our vibrational as high as we can make it. We can do it day over day over day. And the rest is up to the universe.
Yeah,
So
yeah, some great advice. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I think what I would just add to that, like how to deal with judgment, just be true to yourself and keep following your own interests, your own passions.
right.
If you're and if that means you're collecting decks kind of in the privacy of your own home and you're on TerraTube at night, jumping on people's lives to have other people to chat with or to find out what's going. Hey,
Community. Yes.
just just keep going with that. Like follow your passion and see where it takes you. And community, like just keep finding your own
Community.
community. And
Yes.
this is what most people are doing now these days anyway, right? We're all kind of at home a lot more. We're
Yeah.
working virtually. People are using this kind of medium, video platform to be with people. And so,
True.
you can find people that way too.
I think it's so important, the community piece, because it can be a lonely, solitary thing that we do, like writers, right? Um, Writers have to make an effort to convene with other writers, because it's such a solitary creative process. Readers can be on a similar path. Tarot, people who do tarot as a spiritual practice it can feel very alone. And so finding your community, even if it's virtual, it'd be great if it was in person, but even if it's virtual, will help you so much. You need a support system, whether you read professionally or you don't. You may even be an introvert, but you probably need some support, something to bounce off. And then, yeah, if somebody judges you, you could go to your community, and be like, can you believe they said that to me?
Right. Absolutely. I totally second what Kim says. And
Yeah.
so I'm trying to do a smooth segue into promoting Kim's business, so I won't even use her.
Oh,
I will just like totally give a shout out. I think we're about at the end here, and so
yeah.
we'll both kind of tell you what we're up to. But I would definitely encourage find community, whatever that community means for you. So I'm somebody, I've studied all kinds of spiritual things for literally almost 30 years now. I've done different trainings with different teachers. And a few years ago, I decided, I really wanted to focus on learning tarot, studying tarot. I found tarot too, and it's been like the best thing for me to have this community of people from around the world. And after doing a great class with Sadhana, another wonderful YouTuber, then I wanted somebody to mentor me because I wanted to figure out how I could translate what I know into, building a business. And I found Kim, and so I'm part of her Poised to Lead mentorship group, and I just can't say enough great things about it. It's been super helpful for me. I've only been doing it for a year, and I've like come leaps and bounds in that year. So you might want to check that out. So that's a shameless plug for her. But there's lots of other ways, that you can connect and find people to help you. But
Absolutely.
don't go it alone. You don't have to be feeling guilty or whatever. Even if you're still practicing Christian or practicing Muslim or Buddhist or
Yes.
whatever, like come on in with us. The water's fine. We are a very open, loving, accepting
Supportive.
group of people. We want to support people that love the cards. I always want to learn from people of other cultures.
Me
And
too.
so anyway, that's what I have to say. So I will be here on lives. I haven't been doing like hand readings, like recorded readings. I just can't do that anymore. But I'm going to be doing more lives. So if anybody wants to have a conversation, reach out to me. We
Yes.
can do lives together. So
That's right.
Kim, tell us a little bit more about Poise Leaf and what you are up to in general with your cartomancy work.
Oh my goodness. Well, I am a cartomancer. Do read for clients, but what's near and dear to my heart is helping those who want to deepen their reading practice, whether they are just starting out reading the cards, like reading tarot, or they're seasoned and maybe they want to go pro, or they just want to get more familiar with who they are as a reader. And so Poise to Leap is my mentorship program on Kofi. So we got a lot of group meetings we do together each month. My higher tier folk, we work together one-on-one uh, each month. So it's a great time. And I'm thankful for Donna. I'm thankful for being on your channel today. I do have a channel, in case y'all didn't know. But I love
Do tell us your
collaborating.
channel. I should have made a
Yes,
banner and put it in there. But yeah, please
Abundant Life
subscribe to both of
Yes,
our channels. If you want to stay in touch with this series in particular, Artistry of Cartomancy, you're gonna have to
yes,
subscribe to both of us because we're probably gonna trade it off. So
yep.
if you want to get the notices, check it out. So Artists and Oracles, and Kim is
Abundant Life
Abundant Life
Tarot.
Tarot.
Yay.
So subscribe to her. And Luna's just saying, I'm currently getting over my fear of being seen. Me too, Luna. I don't know. It's ongoing.
It's ongoing.
I'm not
Yes,
saying I'm like all so great about it, but I've come a long ways, and I'm still in the game. So
for
yeah,
real, for real.
yeah.
I've been doing YouTubing since 2017, and I still like people are seeing me. Like yes, it's an evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. So this has been great. Thank you all for coming, and thanks to all our chatters here for all your great comments. And
Yes, thank you.
so
And
we'll try
I'll
to come back sooner than like 4 months or whatever it was. Hopefully we can
yeah,
maybe once a month now and talk
that's
about
right.
different topics. Yeah.
We got a growing list, but if you all think of any, leave them in the comment section. The things you want us to explore with artistry of cartomancy, AOC.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Here we got one more comment here. Phone.
Hi, Britt.
Ellipsis. What is that? People are very interested in.
What's
Wow.
this? She was suggesting
Okay.
I not show my face on camera because I'm older. Ah,
I never heard
yes.
that term luxus. Oh my gosh.
I could see how that plays in a sentence. That's the real thing. I'll be a G. There are times I know people, not just for age, but they don't think they're pretty enough, or they think they're too plain, or nobody wants to see them. But no, no, we want to see you.
I mean, that's that judgment piece again, right? Like where where everybody probably comes from different places, but that's what
Yep, the
it's
look.
so sneaky, those little things that we take on. But yeah,
Yeah, I think me even locking my hair is like I don't want to be conventionally Beautiful. I want to be me, you know. So be you.
Okay.
I want to see you.
Yeah, let's just do us because that's pretty nifty. And we'll do our card thing and we'll just, try to be beautiful, bright lights in the world and help people because this work is needed. Let's give one final plug of like how needed this work is because that is what the series is all about too, right? We just want to
Yeah.
encourage people. Kim
Important
is
work.
really in the Kim is in the trenches and she works with all different ways. And she's always saying to us in her group, like, we need more co-leaders. Like,
Yeah.
there's not, a, there's plenty of work and people need help. Here, I'll let
Yeah.
you take it.
That's right. It's true. This is the call. If you have a gift, maybe it's not even just really cards. So you have a gift, answer the call. This is your sign to answer, take that next step to answer the call because it's needed, right? We
Yeah,
need that. Human to
absolutely.
human. Yeah.
Great, everybody. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you again. Take
Thank
care,
you.
everybody.
Bye, friends.